My answer is humans hallucinate all the time. You have to verify the answer. The majority of Shopify and Amazon sellers and entrepreneurs are not the persona of your supply chain expert. So when they just get started, they're essentially doing everything for the first time. And oftentimes people get scammed and they send money to China. They send like $20,000, but they realize later on that they got ripped off. I want to find a supplier that can make this type of yoga pants. I want them to be able to export to the US. My minimum order quantity is around 500. And these are the specific specifications I need. The AI, while you're sleeping, it's going to go use your email, your contact info to reach out to hundreds of suppliers.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to The Business Game,
a podcast that moves the needle. You know, Steve, I've been thinking, if I could clone myself, I'd finally get through my inbox.
Yeah, that's true. Or you could just call Tyler Offshore, right? They basically do that, but better.
True. They match businesses with top-tier remote talent, customer service, admin, even SaaS development.
Yep. Scale your team, cut your costs, and Kalina, keep your sanity.
And their people feel like part of your own team, just without the extra desks.
Yeah, exactly, right? Head to tyleroffshore.com to get your new superstar team member onboarded in just a week. Thanks to Tyler Offshore for supporting The Business Game.
Hello, and welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. I'm Kalina Steno.
I'm Steve Plummer.
Before we get started today, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Today, we're joined by Ricky Ho, co-founder and CEO of SourceReady, an AI-powered online marketplace that makes global product sourcing as simple as typing what you need. So, Ricky, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. Can you kick things off and tell us a little bit about yourself and about SourceReady?
Yeah, it's great to be on the show. So my name is Ricky. I'm the founder of SourceReady. I've been in supply chain and tech for over 8 years. This is actually my second startup, in the supply chain space. My previous company called TreeLab was also a supply chain ERP company that helped big retailers better collaborate and gain visibility into their supply chain. We raised over $22 million from Sequoia, GGV, and I did that for over 7 years in my previous company. I sold the company last year and then recently started SourceReady a year before. And in SourceReady, basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help a lot more smaller businesses better help diversify their supply chain, especially away from China. And I think the problem today in the market is that the process of finding suppliers and manufacturers overseas is an extremely convoluted, complex, and time-consuming process, especially for your average, entrepreneur or Joe that's not, a professional supply chain or procurement person, but wants to sell online products. I think navigating that complexity is just incredibly a huge headache. And I think in the age of AI, we can actually create kind of agents that can help these small businesses navigate this complexity. And more importantly, with all the tariffs that are impacting, the larger economy, we really want to help smaller businesses, diversify their supply chain so that they're not impacted as much in the future.
It's incredible. And yeah, such a forward-thinking way of getting that stuff, ahead. That's amazing. So can you talk us a little bit more through how SourceReady actually works?
Yeah. So I think there's like two parts. The first part is we aggregate the world's supplier data. So actually one of the hardest things about sourcing or finding a product overseas is that most of the world's factories are not online. They don't even have a website. It's like very hard to find who they are. The most popular website that people typically go to is Alibaba. I'm sure you guys have heard of that website. But the problem with Alibaba is that you can think of it as kind of like Yelp for factories. So basically the way Alibaba makes money is that factories in China pay a lot of money to rank on Alibaba. So it's kind of like a listing site. So let's say you want to make your own yoga brand and you want to make, yoga pants. If you go on Alibaba and you search yoga suppliers or yoga pants, you're going to see, thousands of suppliers and on the first page of Alibaba, most of it is going to be sponsored ads, or basically essentially suppliers that pay money to be on the first page. And while Alibaba is free to use, the user experience is not good for the buyer because the results are not necessarily going to get you the best supplier. A lot of times you get scammed because essentially a lot of the suppliers will tell you they're the factory, but actually in reality, they're just a trading company disguising themselves as the factory. So you actually get quoted a price way higher than what it actually is. So what we do is we aggregate data directly from customs data. So we get data directly from the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. We get data from over actually 50 other countries as well. And using customs data, we can actually map out the suppliers of other brands and retailers. And a lot of these suppliers you actually won't find, and you can't search on Google or ChatGPT or these online sources. So if you think about the average factory that works with like Lululemon or like Alo Yoga, they're not going to be on Alibaba or these directories that you think about. So typically, if you didn't have our software, the way you would find them is you either need to know someone, you need to have like a relationship, or you need to like attend a trade show and hope that one of these good suppliers attend the trade show. So you could think of us foremost as a search engine that aggregates the world's supply chain data. The second thing we help with is automation, because the process of actually negotiating and communicating with suppliers, especially, a lot of these suppliers are not in the US, they can't even speak English well. There's this like language barrier. It's a very time consuming, convoluted, and oftentimes for people that are not experienced in supply chain, it's a huge headache essentially. So we think that in the age of AI, this kind of work should just be done by AI. So instead of you having to, stay up at 2 a.m. messaging a factory in China, why don't you just tell the AI, here are my requirements. I want to find a supplier that can make this type of yoga pants. I want them to be able to export to the US. My minimum order quantity is around 500, and these are the specific specifications I need. So the AI, while you're sleeping, it's going to go use your email, your contact info to reach out to hundreds of suppliers. And it's going to basically do all of this back and forth communication on your behalf. When you wake up the next morning, you're going to get a bunch of quotes that are already organized by the AI. So obviously at big companies like Walmart and large companies like Lulu and Ralph Lauren, they have hundreds of people and huge teams whose job is to do this. But imagine if you're just the average entrepreneur in the Midwest, the solo founder, like you're going to be doing all of this yourself. You're not going to be able to hire a bunch of people to do this. So I think there's kind of two parts. There's the data component, and then there's also like the automation. And then what's actually interesting is that a lot of our customers right now are also very large retailers. So we work with, I'm not going to say the names here, but we work with some of the biggest, retailers in the US, and their procurement teams actually use our tool to automate a lot of their processes. Even though they have, teams of people to do this, they don't want to spend their time in email and doing this repetitive, asking the same question to 5 suppliers and then copy and pasting all the answers to like an Excel sheet. They also want to leverage AI to do that. So I think this is something that will disproportionately benefit smaller businesses, but I think it will also benefit even larger organizations that are looking for, efficiency or productivity gains.
Yeah, that's incredible. Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah. So just on that then, was there a moment, Ricky, where I guess you realized that the sourcing issue was broken around the world kind of thing, and then how you could use AI to create this answer or this solution you've come up with? Can you talk us through that aha moment and then the processes you went through from there?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this space for a long time, and basically, like, if you just interview anyone that's ever tried to start their own brand or e-commerce, I can almost guarantee you that 90% of them will tell you that one of the biggest challenges of getting started is not marketing; it's actually sourcing. Um, and the average Joe is not a supply chain expert, and it's not something that you can just pick up. Like marketing, you can actually learn, on the side. Supply chain is a very deeply professional kind of career that people actually have to go through many decades of experience doing. But what you realize is there's a lot of what I call kind of these people doing supply chain and procurement work that are not actually trained people, right? Actually, the majority of Shopify and Amazon sellers and entrepreneurs are not the persona of your supply chain expert. So when they just get started, they're essentially doing everything for the first time, and oftentimes people get scammed. And I have a lot of friends actually. They send money to China. They send like $20,000, and then the product either does not deliver the quality that they want, or they realize later on that they got ripped off. Like this product actually is only worth like 4,000, but because they don't understand what is the right market price, they get ripped off. So I think there's a lot of like, um, you know, complexity in this space. Yet there are millions of people that go through this complexity without the experience. So that's number one. And then number two is the aha moment came essentially when I realized that there's actually a lot of data that's available today that is not being used. So one of the biggest aha moments is I realized that you can actually get data directly from the government on shipping records. So this data is actually like it's kind of creepy, but you can essentially acquire what we call bill of lading data. So what that data tells you is whenever a shipment either leaves or enters the US, you have to go through obviously customs declaration, right? You have to tell US customs what is this product and where it came from, what is the value, and who imported it and who was the factory, who was the exporter. This data is actually available to the public if you go through something called a FOIA Act. So we realized that we can actually use this data as a foundation to kind of build up a map of the world's factories. So basically, you can actually find out where any brand and retailer in the US, who their suppliers are. So that's actually one of the best ways to research suppliers because, let's say for yoga wear, right? It's actually very hard to tell. If you go to Alibaba and you search yoga, you're going to see 100 factories that basically all look the same on the surface. It's going to be very, very hard to tell to an untrained eye which factory is actually going to be the quality factory. But if you know that this supplier actually services Lululemon or Alo Yoga or a brand that has a high quality standard, then that is a huge kind of indicator that this supplier might be a good fit for you, right? So I think this is like one of the second aha moments we realize is that there's a lot of data that we can use today to kind of generate this insight. And then obviously with AI, with ChatGPT and all that, I think agents or AI agents are kind of this revolutionary technology that I think can help out. So like if you think about supply chain, a lot of work in supply chain is basically communication. It's negotiation. It's back and forth communication. It's asking the same questions. Most of the time, if you know what you want and what your requirements are, this is actually the bulk of the work is actually not figuring out the requirements. It's actually getting the answers from all the people or all the suppliers. And this is not an extremely, super complex process, but actually a very time-consuming process. So this time-consuming process, I think AI is actually much better at than a humans, right? A regular human, you're not going to be able to simultaneously hold 100 conversations with 100 suppliers and wake up at 2 a.m. to reply them. But AI can be up 24/7. It can be constantly messaging different suppliers, asking these questions. And I think this is something that was the second aha moment. I realized like the technology actually is here to help automate this process.
Yeah, and I did notice on your website too, you've got that interactive map where if you run your cursor over, it tells you how many
Yep.
manufacturers or suppliers there are in the different countries around the
Yep.
world. It was fascinating, yeah. And
Yeah.
that, as you said, that data is there just readily available to people. We probably don't know, right?
No. Yeah. AI is huge. There's so much there. Um, what would you say like the future of AI in that global trade is actually going to look like, and how close are we to a world where sourcing is fully automated from concept to supplier selected?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that AI will never replace the decision-making process that humans do because AI cannot take responsibility and decisions are very nuanced, right? There is no perfect decision. Everything has trade-offs. It's just like there's no perfect supplier and there's no perfect spouse. Everything there's a trade-off and it depends on your personal preference. I think what AI is going to help is that it's going to be able to give more transparency to the industry and it's going to level the playing ground. I think before the gap between large organizations and small businesses, especially in supply chain, was absolutely massive. And I would say actually the gap for marketing is slightly less because someone can go viral quite easily if you're a small business if you know how to do your content marketing right. But in supply chain, that's completely different. This is a whole different beast. It's very hard for a small business to play at the same level playing field in supply chain as Walmart or like a big retailer. I think AI is going to make it slightly more level playing field because at least you'll be playing at a level playing field on the data side. So you're going to be able to have access to the same suppliers or at least the opportunity for the access for the same suppliers that a big organization has, because you have access to their data and you have the ability to reach out to them. And I think the second part is, I think most people, even at big companies, don't like doing a lot of the repetitive work that they have to do today. I think AI is going to help improve both productivity and also like work enjoyment. Um, so I think, people like the creative process, right? People like thinking about new product ideas. People like, thinking about how to differentiate themselves in the market, and solving unique problems. But most people don't like sitting in their computer and talking to 5 different suppliers on pricing over email. I think this is the type of work that is perfect for AI to automate. But I don't think in the short run, in the next 3 to 5 years, AI will replace humans and just like automate the entire end to end. I think there's always going to be a human kind of in the loop, guiding the AI on what the requirements are, what the goals are, and the AI is just going to be following the orders, or at least the high level kind of goals of what the human is asking the AI to do.
Mm.
It's very much a
Speaking,
tool.
yeah, speaking of that human kind of element, Ricky, can we talk or lean a little bit on your wisdom from what's happened? You built and sold one company, and so looking back on, and you built your second company, obviously. Looking back on that experience, what was a bottleneck that that really held you back, that you were able to break through?
In my first business,
Oh, this one or the first business, yeah.
I think, okay, so for my first company, we were primarily an enterprise oriented company. So we were primarily working with large organizations. And one of the challenges we had was, obviously, for to sell to a large organization, it is not simple enough to create the best product. It's a very complex sales process where you have to convince multiple stakeholders on why your solution is superior to the others. Um, I was quite naive in the beginning in thinking that, so if I have the best product and solution in the market, or at least from a feature perspective, I have the best product, that I can just kind of outcompete the competitors in that way. But I think that was a lesson to be made. I think in the enterprise market, you can't be bad at anything. I guess that's the lesson. It's like you don't have to be perfect in everything, but you can't be bad at anything. So when a big organization makes a decision, they want to lower the risk of the decision making. They need to make sure that the company they partner with is going to be around for many, many years. They're going to have good customer service. They're going to have a stable product. You don't necessarily have to be like amazing on one particular thing. And this is why if you look at most like ERP systems, people don't rave about the systems they use at work. Like it's not like a super crazy system, but it just works. And oftentimes I would say that the stakeholder is not oftentimes the people using the software, right? That like the person deciding what tool and what software to use at these big companies, they're not actually using the tool every day. It's the people under, right? But um, and I think that's actually very different to building a software for small businesses, or at least, well, what in the industry is called PLG, or product led growth products. So if you think about like Zoom, or you think about like a product like Microsoft Teams or Slack, or even Microsoft Word and Excel, like these productivity tools are a lot more kind of user oriented. So the user and the decision maker are a lot closer, because it's a product that is more prevalent and just used across the board. So part of my motivation of selling my previous company was I wanted to build a company in which the user is a lot closer to the decision, than kind of these enterprise products. Like if you think about SAP and Oracle, the typical user of SAP is not the one deciding whether to buy SAP. It's the it's the CFO, the CEO, the CIO, right? And the way they're thinking is more or less, I want to de-risk the company. I want to choose the company or software that is going to be able to stick with us for 15 years and it's not going to have any big risk. Even if it's not amazing, I cannot risk anything. But if you think about the average small business owner, their business decision mindset is ROI. Like if I spend $300 buying some software, is it going to actually return me either time or some value that I can immediately feel? And the decision making process is a lot more transparent and a lot faster. It's just like I'm gonna try the tool. I'm gonna use it maybe on a trial for like 7 days, or maybe for 14 days. And if I like it, I'm going to upgrade. If I don't, I'm not going to use it. So I think this is one of kind of the lessons where it's like enterprise sales or enterprise oriented products is very different than selling to like small businesses. And I think the strategy in which we had to adjust was a big lesson that we had to learn over time. And yeah, and I've experienced kind of both sides of the spectrum now.
Yep.
Yeah, wow.
So the second bit of wisdom I'd love to talk talk through, or have you talk through, was you raised $22 million in a capital raising round, which is just outstanding,
It's
right? Like, yeah.
amazing.
So can you talk us through that process, and also, I guess, what you learned along the way about yourself, about business, or about fundraising?
Yeah. So I think we raised in a very good timing. So we raised our Series A in 2021 for my previous company. That was the height of the venture capital market. There was like so much money around. So I think there's always luck in the component. Obviously not all luck, but I think there is a timing and luck to our raise. And the second thing I think is for the venture capital model is all about 100x returns. So most businesses are actually not venture backable, not because the business itself is not a good business. It's that most business models are not going to be able to generate 100x return in 10 years. Um, and this is why you don't see VCs funding restaurants and VCs funding, average e-commerce websites and stuff, because the average margins and growth rate at those companies are not going to be able to sustain the returns that a VC needs. So I think one of the lessons I learned was raising a lot of raising a lot of money. It's debt, right? Like it might not be debt in the traditional sense of like loaning money from a bank, but it's still debt in the sense that you're losing equity and you're essentially um, you're getting money ahead of time in exchange to hedge growth, um, to accelerate growth. And I think one of the lessons we learned was we actually scaled a little too quickly before we were ready for it. So that was one of the problems that we faced, because when you raise this much money, you can't just say, I'm going to raise this much money, I'm going to put the money in the bank, and I'm going to use it slowly. Like you cannot do that, because then why raise the money, right? Because the purpose of raising that money is to use it to grow your business. But more money does not necessarily always equate to sustainable and productive growth. And while we did end up figuring out how to, build a better business model around it, it did take us a while. I was very young at the time. When I raised that money, I was 20. I actually dropped out of college to start the company. So yeah, I was not. Yeah, it was all very new to me, and I think a lot of it was also how do I say? I think there was ego in play. I think when you're able to raise this much money, there is some level of that, and I think um,
Fair enough too, I reckon,
I
right?
think I'd have a bit of an ego
Yeah,
boost of some
I reckon I'd have a bit of swagger too, right? Like, yeah, I got 22 million. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but I think like over time, you realize that in the end, all that matters is that whether you actually have product market fit, which essentially means, do you solve a problem that the market needs? And more importantly, is that problem a problem that is a venture scale problem? So there are many problems in society that you can solve, right? Even if you were to start a restaurant, that is a problem, and you have a solution. But there's a reason why VCs aren't funding restaurants every time, because you're not going to be able to IPO in 6 years and generate 80% margins and all that. So I think there's a convergence that you need to find a problem that, and typically these problems that generate 100x returns are non-obvious, either non-obvious problems or non-obvious solutions. So if you think about like Airbnb, right, it's like people traditionally would be like, if you think about when Airbnb first started, people scoffed at the idea, like, why would I want strangers in my house? Why would I want to live in a stranger's house? Like that idea is just it sounds stupid. But looking back, I think the unique insight that they had was that you can actually build trust using technology. You can build a layer of trust by having all these review systems and all these controls and all that. And I think you know for people thinking about starting the business, VC is not the only route. Obviously, if you do want to build a business that is going to have huge returns, and you believe that the product that you need to build needs a lot of upfront capital, I think VC is one route. But I think there's obviously a lot of other routes that people can take to build also great businesses that are not necessarily a VC model.
Was there anything that you took from that experience, from raising that kind of money? What sort of takeaways did you have from that, just from an entrepreneurial perspective?
I mean, I could go on for like an hour going on the lessons. I think there are a lot of things. I think first principles are very important. What I mean by that is, you don't want to just be doing things because other people or the consensus says it is. You want to really think about it from first principles in the sense that, is this like, what is what I'm doing? Why is what I'm doing the right answer from the perspective of like, this must be true.
Hey guys, just a quick break to thank our affiliate partner, HubSpot. We are thrilled to announce our partnership with HubSpot, the ultimate all-in-one CRM platform. HubSpot helps you streamline marketing, sales, and customer service with powerful tools to grow your business faster. From lead generation to automations, it's got you covered. By using the link in the description, you not only get to start your HubSpot journey for free, but you'll also be supporting our work here on the show. Now it's back to today's episode.
Even though most people don't think it's true. I think that's one thing that really is really important to keep in mind, because when you do, it's actually very scary to make a decision when no one else is doing it. Like, you'll probably think like, okay, am I just being stupid? Like, why is everyone else not doing this? But when you look at what everyone else is doing, you often feel like, I feel like they're kind of stupid. Like, what they're doing doesn't. So, but obviously there's a strike balance to it. It could be that you're whatever you're thinking is stupid. Like, maybe people have tried it, and the reason why you don't see anything around is because all the ones that have tried it have died. And it also could be the fact that there could be some unique insight that you have, that people have not seen yet, that you can scale. So I think really thinking deeply about a problem and understanding the problem deeply before you execute is important. And obviously, you learn as you execute. But I would not just go out there and just do what everyone else is doing, and just because that company raised this much money, now I got to do that as well, and do the same thing. I think that's one of the lessons. And the number two is, I would say, um, growth grow quickly when you know that each money that you put in can very easily equate to a clear return. So what I mean by that is, one of the lessons that we had was that we actually did not have a very scalable sales cycle yet before we raised the money, and we were just basically making the assumption that because we had kind of initial PMF, like we had some early customers, we had really good feedback, we had some early revenue, that based on that, we can just basically scale that with more money. And we did not validate that yet. And that ended up wasting us a lot of time, and money, obviously, going down the wrong path, and executing on the wrong path. So I would say, like, you want to be slow in the beginning and then suddenly very fast. So what I mean by that is, you see a lot of companies, actually, it'll take them 3-4 years to get to like $1 million in revenue. But then from 1 million to 20 million, it'll take them a year. And then from 20 to 100, take them another 2 years. And the reason the curve looks like that is that in the initial 3-4 years, it's more exploratory. They're trying to understand their business model, their customers, who they need to sell to, what is the right solution. But once you crack the problem, once you realize, okay, I already have a standard solution that can solve a huge market, then you should raise a lot of money and then just say, okay, I'm just going to scale this like crazy. I'm going to put money in ads. I'm going to hire more people. I'm going to hire more sales. But I think a lot of people do that a little too early. Um, and I think doing it too early is more harmful than not, because you end up wasting time and money going off the wrong direction.
That's really good. Yeah, insight.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about how you're using AI in what you do? And I guess what I want to ask is, what's one thing that I guess shocks traditional supply chain operators about what AI can do?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's shocking is that AI is actually much better at humans at doing large volumes of supplier evaluation. What I mean by that is, think about your typical, like, how do you evaluate a supplier? You typically have like a checklist of things that you look for. Do they have the right certifications? Have they worked with customers in my same industry? Do they have the product specifications that meet my requirements? Do they have the right cost? You basically have a checklist of things that you go through and evaluate. Humans are not as good as AI as doing this, is because you as a human only have a certain level of bandwidth of information that you can take in at a certain level, a certain time. So let's say I give you, let's say you want to find a clothing supplier with like 5 different requirements that meet your check mark. The probability of so like there's probably going to be thousands of suppliers in the pool that can make clothing, right? Or even tens of thousands. How are you going to choose the top 20 suppliers of the 10,000? As a human, you can't sample all 10,000 and then choose the top 20. You don't have the time, you don't have the ability to do that. What AI is actually good at is I could literally have AI within a minute look at 10,000 different supplier profiles and rank each supplier against the specific requirements I have, and rank the suppliers from top to bottom from that 10,000. And I think this is something where it's surprising to a lot of people, because traditionally you would think that humans are much better at these kind of criteria ranking and stuff. But I would say that like even if you use ChatGPT, like I don't know, I'm sure everyone has used it. You can throw like a huge document at it and you can ask it some question about that document, and it can find the answer in like page 43 of that document and remember it. If I were to throw that at a human, think about how long that would take you to read the whole book to even find that answer. So I think this, you can imagine sourcing as something where you have a huge pool of possibilities, or you have like tens of thousands of potential suppliers, but you don't know which one actually is the right fit for you. So traditionally it's kind of like luck. Like if you manage to pick, you just happen to pick the one that meets your requirements, then you're lucky. But there's also kind of this like opportunity loss thing where it's like maybe there's even a better one, but you just never happened to look at it, or you never had the time to look at it. Where AI kind of helps is like I don't have to make that kind of trade off. I don't have to say, oh, I can just evaluate everyone. I can just evaluate all 10,000. I don't have to pick a sample size from that. So I think that is surprising to a lot of people of what AI is really better at than the humans at.
Yeah, I think there might be a little pushback here on that, Ricky, because AI and trust, and we've heard of the hallucinations that happen. So what's your response to that? If someone says, "Oh, I don't know if I trust it to do it,"
my answer is humans hallucinate all the time.
That's a really good answer.
I mean, this is the answer
have
that
one of those days
if you look at a lot of the AI leaders. But when humans hallucinate, I think there's less scrutiny because we accept the fact that humans make mistakes. And I think for whatever reason, because we think AI comes from a machine, machines have to be somehow perfect.
Yeah.
I think hallucinations are definitely going to happen, and this is why humans are always in the loop.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to verify the answer. You check the answer, check the work.
It's
right?
just done all the tedious tasks to get. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just like today, if you, let's say you were to hire a team of 100 people to look at this 10,000 list of suppliers. I'm sure that they're going to make mistakes too. How are you going to verify that? Right? You're probably going to check their work. So I think it's the same process. And I think my answer to that is that, this is why if AI never made any mistake and never hallucinated, then we don't need you. Like then AI should just be running the economy. Then we don't need humans at all. Right? I think we should be grateful that AI is imperfect, and that we can leverage it for certain things, but there are certain things where humans still need to be in the loop, and that's where the 1 + 1 = 2 comes, right?
That's a really great answer. I really love that perspective. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I have a question. So, with SourceReady, do you think that you're going to be wiping out Alibaba altogether? When to me, it seems like is that a goal?
I don't want to say wipe out. I think we'll provide an alternative, and I think that alternative, especially, will be the case for people looking for suppliers outside of China. So I think one of the biggest like aha moments I had was that like most countries in the world don't even have websites like Alibaba. I was talking to a friend, and he was telling me that it's like so much easier. He was trying to find a supplier in California for to make like for a supplement brand, and he was telling me like it's so much easier for him to find a supplier in China than it is to find a supplier in the U.S. Even though he's in the U.S., right? And you would think that U.S. suppliers would be more digital, but in reality, like most countries don't have supplier listing sites. If you think about, let's say you want to find a supplier in like Cambodia or Egypt or I don't know, Brazil. There's a lot of great factories and manufacturers in all these countries, but they don't have websites like Alibaba where all the factories register themselves and put their information there for you to easily find. So I think that is the biggest, I guess, like insight where I think Alibaba, the reason why a lot of people go to China to make things, not only is because China obviously is good at making a lot of things, but also because it's the easiest place to go to because you have websites like Alibaba. Yeah, made it accessible. I can just like go online, go to some website, just search some product, and then I can find a list of factories. You can't do that. Yeah.
All right, why is it, do you think, that these other countries don't have that same initiative that China does of creating, a site that
I think it's too fragmented for most markets. It's a scale problem. China just has so many factories where a business like Alibaba makes sense. If you think about a country like, I don't know, Honduras or Egypt or these countries, they probably have, a couple thousand suppliers, in that country for a certain category, but that's not enough suppliers for a platform to take place. Because a platform, the requirement of a platform is you need to have enough buyers and sellers on both sides, but most countries just don't have the scale. I think that's the number one problem. And number two problem is I think most countries don't have technology giants that want to go into manufacturing and supply chain. I think Alibaba in China, for whatever reason, they're willing to do the dirty work of entering this business because it's not a sexy business. Like I actually learned the way Alibaba onboards all these factories onto the website is they have a team of like 15,000 people in China that just visit all these factories in person all over China to basically convince them to sign up to Alibaba. This is a very heavy process. If you think about the US, the US also has a lot of great manufacturers, all over America. But I don't think Google or Amazon or any of these big tech companies want to enter this business. Like they're not it's not a sexy business. It's not a huge, revenue profit generating business. And, over time the US has, to be honest, deindustrialized. So there aren't going to be as many manufacturers and suppliers. So what ends up happening is it's kind of like a dual cycle. It's like uh there's more suppliers, and because there's more suppliers, platforms can exist. Because platforms can exist, these suppliers get more business. Buyers want to go to these suppliers because the platform makes it easier. And then over the span of 20 years, China built the entire advantage, and then people just go there. I think now it's starting to shift. It's starting to shift because you have this tariff situation. People are realizing, we can't just make everything in China. And I think because of that, people are willing to go through more trouble to say, okay, let's try to find a supplier in Vietnam or in Mexico or domestically in the US. But a lot of people just get stuck. They're like, okay, where do I even get started? How do I even search? How do I even search for a supplier in Mexico? Like, where do I go? So I think that is one of the reasons why we want to start Source Ready is we want to make it as easy as just a search bar. You just type in what you want. We help you find that supplier in that country.
I'm excited to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, cool. Ricky, can we talk about leadership and your leadership journey in the business world? And I guess, what did you have to, and again, reflecting on your journey where you're at now, what did you have to either stop doing or start doing to help you get to the level you're at now?
Well, I think leadership, obviously, there leadership differs depending on what stage of the company you're at. I'm a believer that in the early stages of a company, the leadership is shown by you basically have to do every role yourself at one point to understand the nuances of what that role requires. I don't think going to MBA or learning management school is going to help you start a business from 0 to 1. But I think obviously that will change once you're managing a team of like a couple hundred people or even a couple thousand people. There are obviously management philosophies and certain ways that you should organize an organization. But I think if you're just starting out, I think leadership is instilling belief into your team. I think that's the number one goal of a leader is you need to paint the vision in a way that gets everyone to believe and get on the same page. So I believe in a mentality called context over control. What I mean by that is a good leader does not need to tell their team what you need to do. What you need to tell them is, I need to give you all the context of what I have as a leader. Because a leader, obviously, in their mind, they have a lot of context about their business. They know about where they want to be. They know about their competitor. They know about our problems. They know all of that. I think the problem with a lot of leaders is they're not willing to share their context because they don't trust their employees. They think that, oh, they're scared for whatever reason. They don't want to show their vulnerability. They want to show up the perfect side of their business. And then they end up just basically telling their employees to do things. I think that's actually not good because, first of all, you're not unleashing the potential of your employees. They might have great ideas about the business that you don't, but because they don't have the full context of the business, they can't contribute. And the second thing is it makes managing hard because then you have to like micro control every day about, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. I think the best way to manage is you should be very clear about what problems the business should solve and get people excited about what direction the business should go, and then give them enough context so that they can actually contribute themselves and give them enough autonomy to do it. Obviously, you should check their work and make sure that they get the help they need. But I think context over control is something that I personally believe in as a management philosophy. And yeah, if you look at really great companies like Google or these like big technology companies, if you look at their management style, they're actually very relatively lax. Like you'd be surprised how much autonomy and freedom they give their employees. And look at how good from a financial perspective that has resulted in Google, right? Um, I I think more businesses should learn from that. You should hire the best people, the best talent, trust them that they will deliver good work, and then give them enough autonomy and context to do it. So I think that's my belief.
I love that.
Mm.
Context over control. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
So, with building SourceReady, what would you say is something that looks really simple from the outside, but is absolute chaos behind the scenes for you and is actually a huge challenge?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good question. So I think the data piece is the hardest part about our entire business. First of all, acquiring data. A lot of the data that we acquire is not necessarily publicly available in the sense that it is legally publicly available, in which there are legal means to get it, but it is not publicly available in the sense that you can't just go to some website and go to like the Customs Border Patrol website to download shipment data. And every country releases the data differently. So there's a whole convoluted process that we have to go through to acquire the data. And the second part is actually cleaning the data and making the data actually useful for the average user. So there's a huge like basically infrastructure and AI pipeline that we have to build, or data pipeline that we have to build to, because we have all these different data sources. We have data that we crawl, we have data that we get from customs, we have data that we get from trade shows, and we basically have to merge all this data into one clean, unified source. And that is a lot of work and a lot of manual, checking to see that if the data is good, adjusting our algorithms, rerunning the pipelines. And yeah, I think that's a huge, work under the hood.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Before we start to wrap up, Ricky, I'm interested in a few cheat codes here. So if someone's running a business similar to yours and they're 2, 3, 4 years behind you, what are some of the cheat codes that you could give them to accelerate their journey?
You mean if they also want to build a software business? I think first, validate demand before building. I think people are oftentimes too attached to their own beliefs and ideas, and they think that, oh, I have a great idea, and this thing must be needed by everyone. Let's go ahead and build a huge solution with all these features, and then they build it, and then they realize no one needs it, or the demand is a lot less than they thought. So I think right now with like vibe coding and Lovable and these AI tools, it's actually very easy to build an MVP. build a minimum viable product, something that might not be perfect, but is enough to actually validate if this is something people want. So I think the first step is validate in the shortest time and cheapest way possible. Validate the demand. Once you have validated the demand, then try to narrow down your ICP or ideal customer profile. Um, because I think people also have a tendency uh, to basically say, okay, this software can be used by everyone, or like I have a huge market. I'm gonna try to like make everyone happy. I think that's very very difficult, at least in the beginning, because you have limited resources, and and every type of customer might have different types of requirements. So you want to make sure, okay, is my core focus small business or big companies? And you ought to be even more specific. You should say, I want to find businesses that are between 1 to 5 million in this industry. And the way I know if they're a good customer is if they have this specific, indicator or pain point, or if they have this, right? So I would say be very specific about who your ideal customer profile is. And number three, my biggest advice would be it's better to have 10 customers that absolutely love you than have 1,000 customers that so kind of like you. And the reason why I say that is I think people oftentimes try to build too broadly, and they try to make everyone happy, whereas it's better to actually build a solution where you can get 10 people to absolutely love you and they'll rave about you and tell all their friends about. And then once you have that, then you can turn that 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000. Word of mouth is a very very strong growth engine. Almost all of the great companies in the world grow through word of mouth. Like if you think about, how did you first hear about Uber or Airbnb? Like I'm pretty sure it's not because of some ad. Like most people heard of it because someone near you tell you, because, oh, check out this thing, right? But the way you build this viral engine is you need to build something 10x better than what is existing in the market. And in order to build something 10x better, you need to have people that absolutely love you. And if they love you, they'll tell all their friends about you, and their friends are most likely going to tell their friends about it. And I think people are too rushed. Like it's actually very hard to build something that is 10x better. It's easy to build something that's like 20% better. Like there are a lot of things in the world that are like slightly better than other things, but those things are not exciting enough for people to like tell everyone about. So they're just like, they're not dead. Like they're just kind of like there, and they're like, okay, so you have to spend money on ads and you have to like do all this customer acquisition. But if you think about like really great businesses, they the product itself is the best marketing engine because the product is just that good. And I think the advice should be that instead of just building something that is just slightly better than what is in the market, you should try to build something that is like 10x better. Where when anyone tries it, they're just like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is so good. I'm gonna tell when they get home, they'll tell their wife about it. When they go to work, they'll be like, dude, this thing is like so cool. Like that's the kind of response you need. Not okay, okay, it kind of works. So I think that's the sort of thing that I mean, at least in the software industry, that's what I would recommend.
It's hard to get there when you're like coming from an MVP position. You're like, how do I make this 10x better when I already know like what I'm putting out isn't that
Yeah.
great yet? Like that's such a pinch point to get from that to that.
Yeah, that's why I think it's like there's multiple steps, right? First is validating, is there even a problem in the market? Once you validate there's a problem, you almost want to not be too rushed in scaling your marketing or your growth engine. You want to get the product to a point in time where whenever you show a new person, that person becomes your advocate. If you show 10 people and they're just like, oh, okay, it kind of works. Like if that's the answer, I'm not saying you shouldn't do any, marketing or anything, but I don't think marketing should be the foremost number one thing you think about when you wake up every day. I think you should think about product. I think you should make the product better. And until you're at the point where people are starting to talk about it, and then marketing becomes the thing where $1 spent on marketing actually returns $10, because every person you get their eyes in front, they're going to tell their friends. So it kind of becomes this like viral engine. And if you look at Tesla, for example, obviously Elon is very controversial. People might not like him, but I think one of the things he mentioned is, Tesla, they actually are one of the few automakers that don't run advertising, or at least run it at scale. And they're a Tesla car, people that like Teslas really like Teslas. Obviously, people who don't really hate it, but more because of the philosophy, less about the car. But I think that's something else that I think is important. It's like build a really good product, and customers will come.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. I think that's a great note to finish on.
Mhm.
But before we wrap up, we like to play a little game with our guests where we will throw 10 rapid fire questions at you just to get to know you a little bit more personally. Are you ready?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
All right.
Righty.
What is your coffee order?
Iced Americano.
Best investment you've ever made in terms of time or money?
I think starting my first company. I think
Mhm.
that's I've learned so much from that.
Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Okay, a business book or podcast you recommend to everyone?
I think the book 0 to 1 is pretty good. It's by Peter Thiel. Especially for people interested in how to build a great technology company. I think that book is pretty good. And it's not just about technology. I think it's a very unconventional approach to building businesses that I think is quite interesting.
What was your first job?
Actually starting my first company. That was my first job.
Show off.
Yeah, remember 22 million at 20.
Yes,
remember that?
yeah.
Gosh. Okay, one piece of tech you couldn't live without.
My MacBook.
Office or work from home?
I'm actually on the fence about this, but I'm more actually recently going back to the work in person kind of thing. If you asked me maybe like a couple months ago, I would have said completely remote, but I feel like there's still this magic in like seeing everyone in person. So I'm a little more on the in person side now.
If you weren't doing what you do now, what career would you choose?
You'd probably be an engineer, like a software engineer.
Yep.
Early riser or night owl?
Early riser.
And what's your current go-to productivity hack?
I think does meditation count?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
that counts.
100% it does. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it actually helps a lot because I think there's just so much going on. I think just calming down, and then after meditation, the mind is just a lot clearer on like what are the priorities and gets the clutter out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You can
cool.
get through the day a lot
Yep.
easier. All right.
Yeah.
And the final question, Ricky, if business really is a game, what is your definition of winning?
Oh, actually, I have a really great thought on this. I think business is an infinite game. So there are games that are infinite, and there are games that are finite. I think business is a lot of people try to play the business game, the competition game, as if there is some goalpost in which you pass and then you somehow win. If you think about how business is run in the economy, you're always competing. You're never, even when you IPO, you are still competing. You never end, and the goalpost always moves forward. So you ought to think about it as a long-term, infinite game. So if you think about there are games in which like chess, where after you finish, there's a very clear winner and loser, and there are infinite games like, I don't know, role-playing games or other like open world games where there's technically never an end. I think you want to think about starting a business as an infinite game, and this is why resilience and passion, I think in the long run, are going to be the two things that decide whether you even have the potential to win. Because most people give up too early. Most people try to think about things from a too finite perspective. So if you don't love what you do, it's very easy to give up. And also the other advice is like, there's never like failure is okay if you think about everything from an infinite standpoint, right? Because you can just keep going.
That is very wise. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, Ricky, for sharing your time with us and your wisdom. For our listeners, where can they find you and SourceReady online?
They can add me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. If you just search Ricky Ho SourceReady, feel free to connect with me. And you can go to sourceready.com. Our product is free to try. So we'd love everyone's feedback if everyone can give it a shot.
Oh, I'm definitely going to jump on there. That sounds fun. All right. That's all we've got time for, wherever you're listening from. Thanks for joining us here on The Business Game, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Business Game.
If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected.
A big thank you to our major sponsor, Tyler Offshore, for powering today's episode.
And join us again on the next episode of The Business Game,
A podcast that moves the needle.